straight, open and dumb. You got to go out there and handle your business. Open up doors.
This is Jared Rand. I'm with the Opening Doors podcast, and this is episode 1. And the purpose of this podcast is to bring value to anybody out there who's been through tough things in their life. The purpose of this is to share experience, to try to create a bigger community of people who have been in the trenches and have gotten themselves out of it. Everybody's a little bit different, so I think just by being able to share experience, I think we can all grow as a community and help bring other people who have been down, are down, will be down. Not only that, people that are attached to those people, because what I've realized is, it took a lot of deep thinking and self-reflection, self-awareness to realize that there were other people I was affecting with all the choices I was making. So those people are welcome as well. My goal with this is to eventually not only just try to interview and have conversations with people that have gotten out of the muck and the mire, but also people that are attached to those people that are what we used to call in SAU the change agents. I want to get people on here who are on the other side of it, who deal with like the counseling aspect of it, and try to just basically add as much value and build a community of people who are lifting. And I think the biggest problem is when you're down, you're inside your own head. No matter what the situation is, I think the hardest thing is realizing that it's real, that it really could happen. And so that's what the purpose of this is to share the successes, the failures, and to help anybody out there that's listening realize that this can happen, man. So I'm going to jump right into it. Rich, we've known each other for, over 10 years now, I guess. What is it, about 10 years or so?
10 years.
Take me through, I'm going to get into this about myself too, but, we've got you here, so take me through like, your, brief childhood, like how you were brought up, and, what kind of took you into, some of the things you were doing, Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, my childhood was relatively cool until I was like 11. I kind of, I had a mom, I had a father figure, but they split when I was, I don't know, like 5 or 6, and we moved back from Germany. We were living in Germany. Moved back from Germany.
So
and all of a sudden,
were you a military family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but I didn't know that my dad wasn't like my real dad. And so I find that out after they split, and I'm like, oh, this other dude. So I'm about
find that out when you're 11?
Yeah, 10, 11. And
almost like a devastating blow.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, where'd this dude come from? I find out I got a sister, and it was weird. And at the same time, I had my dad, who was my dad and had been my dad since I was a kid, right, who I knew as dad. But then it was, my mom was dating this other guy, and they got married, and so I rebelled, man. I borrowed my stepdad's car. I was stealing their alcohol. I was running away. And then my mom, basically, I ran away one time, and the state put me in as a child needing care. And so I just I stayed in the state's custody until I was 17. I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Came home a little bit more messed up than I left, and got a job in law enforcement. Surprisingly, I was a prison guard for a little while.
What do you mean by you? When you went in, you enlisted, you went in, you came out a little worse than you were before? What does that mean?
I deployed twice and saw some things that I just never really wanted to see.
So stuff that PTSD is made of, the type of stuff that is, it's traumatizing. I get it.
For sure. So anyway, I get a job in law enforcement because that's really the only option I got at the time. And I'm a prison guard. I go from that to deputy sheriff, see some stuff there, and long story short, I'd been smoking pot the entire time because I needed something to help self-medicate. I was drinking a lot. I was like literally
Yeah.
not taking medication. But I left my job as a deputy sheriff, and unexpectedly, it was just kind of like, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do now. And I had an opportunity, because I told you I smoked pot. I had an opportunity to sell pot. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll do this for a little while. And basically turned that into a pretty lucrative gig. I mean, I hustled my ass off and made a lot of money.
As it usually is.
And I should have known that the writing was on the wall, because like I get caught, and then I don't know, 6 months later, I'm going through trial. I'm going through all that court stuff. I drug it out a year. In that time, I also get a DUI car accident where people were injured. I mean, they thankfully recovered, but the devastating thought on their own psyche and their lives at that point in time, I can't
So
imagine.
did that coupling that with like the other few, traumatic experiences, did that accelerate your self-medication and
For
stuff
sure.
like that, and
For
really
sure.
drive addiction, or what was it? What did it did? Okay.
It was really trying to just hide in the hole, right? I mean, I didn't want to feel anything.
Right.
And so for me, it was using substances to not feel. And I look at it, and I look at it in a lot of different ways. That it took me down a path that I never thought I would go down. That what I mean. Because I went from being in boys' homes, right? It's like, I don't want this kind of life.
Right.
But then I get in trouble. I get in that car accident. I mean, my life is spinning before my eyes. I don't know what's going to happen. They send me to prison.
That was for selling weed?
For selling weed in a DUI car accident. And basically what had happened was I pled out to both of them on the same day. And they played against each other in my criminal sentencing. So it's almost like I had the drug charge before I got the DUI, but in effect, it really wasn't that way. So I got a harsher sentence based on the sentencing guidelines. But it's for good use, because I'll be honest with you, going to prison is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I was on a whirlwind of pain and suffering, and you know how they say that, if you're in pain, you're suffering, all you do is give more pain and suffering to those around you.
Yeah.
The ones you care about.
So what was that? What was that like? You said you were a prison guard at one time, where in Kansas or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when the tables turn and now you're in that situation, to me, I mean, something like going through something like that, I guess, it's, I guess maybe it's just the way I think, but I'm thinking back to all the times of, how did I treat people when I was on the other side, so like.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, so I worked at a maximum security prison, right? I worked at one of the worst prisons in Kansas. And so I kind of had an idea, right? I mean, I had seen guys getting beat with locks and socks, and I knew what happens inside.
Well, so that probably shaped your picture of prison already. So when you're going in, like not realizing that there's a point system and that like a DUI and a drug charge is not going to take you to that place, but that's your image of it. So you're going in there with your guard completely up, and you're like, holy shit, man, I'm gonna have to fight for my life over a DUI.
I'm going in there thinking that I got to make sure I'm the biggest, baddest, toughest dude, because if I don't, somebody's going to take advantage of me. And that was my thought going in. I mean, that's because, as a prison guard, you're trained that way, right? The inmates, that's what they do. They prey on people, and in a lot of ways, some do, but there's a lot of guys that just make bad choices, and have to deal with the consequences of those choices. But for me, the beauty of it is I like to say that I was the only guilty guy going into prison, because I knew what I had done. I openly admitted it. I took a plea deal, and part of the reason I took a plea deal was because Dude, they got me with weed in my house when the drug task force raided me. I mean, I wasn't getting out of it.
Right.
You know, the DUI car wreck, same situation. You know, I had to face the music of my choices.
So what do you think? Can you recall, like, at what point was there like a, just like all of a sudden one day, like you're looking at your surroundings and your circumstances and you're like, what drove you in the other direction? Like, what can you attribute that to? Like, what was it that you were, because I'm a firm believer in subconscious and conscious activity. And I
Yeah.
believe that whatever you feed into your brain, like whatever you're reading, whatever you're listening to, whatever you're watching, somehow, some way, it's going to be impressing upon your subconscious and eventually manifest itself out. And so I,
Yeah.
it just makes me curious on how other people have gotten to that point where they're like, I need to actively make a conscious decision and effort to go the other direction. At what point did you like look at your surroundings and be like, man, I gotta like start searching for something?
Well, so I had bonded out prior to going through all my court case, right? So I was a free man. I mean, both times I bonded out.
So you were almost already a little bit like shook, like, damn,
Yeah.
I gotta do something else, so I get it.
Well, yeah. I'm trying to figure out my life while going through this, and going through the court proceedings and going and not, that's my own fault. It's definitely my own fault, but I was shook. I was definitely shook. I didn't. I had my lawyer telling me that I was going to get probation. I mean, they all do, of course. They want you to pay them, so I'm
Well, if
going
you
to get
pay
probation.
for them, I mean, then there's guys like me that like, just uh just like constantly in and out of trouble, and I always get the public pretender, and they're always like, man, I mean, what do you want to plead to? It's like you're gonna do time. It's not like, I'm not going in here to fight for you because I get paid a salary and I don't give a fuck what's gonna happen. I
Yeah, I'm
mean,
pretty.
some of them do, but like, so that's a little bit, that's a different perspective on it.
I paid tens of thousands of dollars for somebody that treated me just like they were a public defender. I mean,
And that's a hard
I
pill.
mean,
That's a hard pill to swallow.
you know, um, but really, I go back to, so the day I got sentenced, I was the last guy getting sentenced in front of this judge, and uh, there was a girl that had gone before me that she had been on community corrections, which is felony probation, for meth. And this was her third violation, and the judge gave her probation. So I'm feeling
You're
pretty
like,
good, right? Like I've got a shot at probation. I've already started to turn my life around. I was going to treatment. I was going to therapy. I was, really trying to figure out, how to not cope the way I was coping. And but really, the real turning point for me to make a decision to go above and beyond, I was actually sitting. So because I worked in law enforcement, I couldn't stay in the state of Kansas. So they did what they call an interstate compact. And that's how you and I met,
yep.
because I came up to Nebraska. Um, but I was sitting in our super maximum security prison in a, relatively big cell, comparatively,
Yeah.
but no contact order. I was on a 3-man move because I was in law enforcement. I worked in the prison system. So I couldn't leave my cell unless they had 3 guys. Well, the prison system, normally they struggle to get COs anyway.
Yeah.
So I was missing phone calls, and I only got out for half an hour each day. This was 4 months long. And to kind of put it in perspective, I was one cell block over from Dennis Rader, who's BTK, but we had the same accommodations at the time. So, I mean, he would, I look at it and I'm like, well, damn, there is no fucking way I'm doing this ever again. Like, I've got to change. I cannot ever put myself in this position. I mean, 23 hours a day and 30 minutes in your cell with no physical involvement, no
Interaction.
no interaction whatsoever, your mind starts to really play games with you.
I like what you just said, man. I want to back up a minute. You just said the biggest thing about this is I think the biggest word for me is accountability and taking responsibility for my life. And um, you just said I can never put myself in this position again. And so where I was going with the, you know, my aha moment, or so to speak, I've always read a lot. Like I've been in and out a lot in my life, and I've always read, and I've always like somehow known that there was supposed to be something else than this.
Yeah.
And so like eventually on this last time, my aha moment is, when I'm really digging deep into that conscious subconscious activity stuff. And I'll coin the book. Matter of fact, I got the here in my library somewhere. I got the book by, I think it's Joseph Murphy, Conscious Subconscious. But um, basically, my aha was day in and day out, you're looking at this, you're looking at the circumstances, and you're like, man, this is like some powerful shit. You're walking this track, you got razor wire, you've got people telling you what to do, when to do it. Not only that, you're in a place where um it's I want to get away from saying the worst of the worst anymore, because it really is not that. What it is, it's a level of mindset, and when people are thinking on a very low frequency, that's what brings them into prison type situations. But um the point is that looking around at my entirety of my situation, I'm just like, wow, man, this is some powerful shit that I created. And once like
That's the key that you
that
created.
I created, like I didn't put this fence here. I didn't put uh the only thing I did was put me inside here. So it was almost like a habit of thinking that. I had to tell myself that like 50, 100 times. I don't know how many times it was before one day I was like, it dawned on me. And I was like, man, if I can create this, if I can create this for myself, I know that I can take actionable steps to go the other direction and create something else for myself. Because I know damn well, like I'm not stupid. So I know I can provide better for myself than this.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's kind of what it was for me, this last time. And that was right around the time we were interacting, where we met each other. And, you know, um, people like to use, we used to call them house mouses, and, this and that. And I mean, I'm telling you what, man, like this last time, I had an image. I'd been in there, a few times. I had a name for myself on the yard. I was doing one of many things: selling cigarettes, having a poker table, scratching numbers off of CDs and exchanging them with people and doing numbers for people. Um, there was just all these little side hustle things that you do. Well, it's against the rules, and this time I didn't do any of it. I didn't do any of it. I basically, what I did is I took that image of myself on that yard and I got through it, got rid of it. And I said, I'm not like, because they used to call me J Red, which is just a variation of my name. It was for phonetic spelling for people who looked at my name and they couldn't say Jared. It was just Jared. It was J Red. And so what I had started doing was correcting people and say, I'm just Jared. I'm just Jared, man. And so when you have that image in there, I'm not the Billy Badass or nothing like that, but people, when you have a reputation for certain things, people expect that from you. And so it was a shocker to a lot of people, and I had to deal with not so much of the bullying and picking on type of stuff, but it was more of like, it was like from a peer pressure standpoint of, what, you're not going to put money on this football game? What, you're not going to start up a poker table? What, you're not going to this and that? And it was like,
keep doing the things you've been doing the last few times you were in. So people
when
are
I
like,
tell
"What?"
you, like, and I tell this to guys too, because I still talk to quite a few. I'm on some phone lists, and I talk to guys when they're out on parole and stuff, and mentor a few people and try to bring people up. But I tell this to people, and what they don't realize is that when you're developing new habits and new ways of thinking, it's an every day, every hour, every minute, every second conscious effort to create that new habit. And so when I tell you that I there was, I don't know how many times I had to put the block up, on the yard of, you know, nope, I'm not, I can't, man. And just like go back to my cell. I'm, you know, and go back into self-study mode, you know. That's kind of what I
Mhm.
escaped into because, to be honest with you, I was searching. I didn't know who the fuck I was. I didn't know who I was supposed to be. I didn't
Yeah.
know, but I did know that I wasn't supposed to do that for the rest of my life. And
You know,
so,
it's crazy because, you know, even though I was in law enforcement, I mean, from the time I was 11 till the time I was 17, I was in and out of boys' homes and foster care. I was in facilities. In fact, there's a facility I was in before I enlisted in the Marine Corps called New Directions. There was a guy named Barry Smith that ran the place, and just, I mean, incredible individual, right? And a lot of, you know, me getting into law enforcement after the military, it was just kind of, that was a shoe-in job, right? I mean, I didn't go into the military. I enlisted as an infantry marine, and so I didn't go in to learn comms or anything like that. So I didn't have any skills coming out that would be beneficial to the workforce.
except
So it was
being a
just kind
soldier.
of, yeah.
So you're like,
And that,
where in the fuck can I use this skill set? And it's like, I'm gonna go be a prison guard.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
seriously, like I noticed that quite a bit about a lot of the guards in there. And, you know, in the beginning, you know, my first number I went in there, I was that knucklehead. I was that, like, I literally, in an 8-year span, I probably had 250 write-ups, ranging from the dumbest of the dumb, just exchanging material, you know, like CDs or something like that, all the way up to being involved in large fights. And I mean, it was a wide range of stuff. And what I realized looking back on that is it wasn't about those activities. It was those actions, those write-ups were not, it wasn't about that action. It never was about that. It was about the mindset behind the action. And what it came down to for me was a chip on my shoulder. I thought that I didn't have to work for what I earned. I thought that things that you know, it should be just a given, and my good looks and my mouthpiece can get me through anything. And uh, it was just horrible characteristics. You know what I'm saying? It was just like
Yeah.
horrible.
You know, but I'm going to tell you, anytime, you know, selling weed is easy. I mean,
It
fire.
sells itself. It's just a matter of who's
Yeah.
got the supply, right?
No. And but that's easy money. So anybody that's ever gotten into that hustle, whether it's weed, whether it's coke, whether it's meth, it's very easy to get out if you don't change your mindset and say, "Hey, I'm never going to do this to myself again." Really, it comes to valuing yourself, right? It really does. It comes to that. So one of the big things when I was locked up, I mean, going in, you could tell that I wasn't, you know, just the same old knucklehead on the yard, right? And in fact, there's a couple of times where a dipshit CO would say something to one of the other guys on the yard, and I had to fight to show them that I'm not going to back down. You're not going to put me in PC. That you're not going to. I mean, no, like we're going to do something. Um,
And that's a whole nother, I mean, that's a whole nother story when you got guards like instigating stuff like that, because at
yeah.
that point you look at what their perspective on it is, and it's literally just using you for entertainment.
Yep. Yep. And that's the thing. You know, I could have let those things, you know, derail me. I could have came out more pissed off than I went in. But I didn't. There's a book that I actually read. It's called The Upside of Fear by Weldon Long. And I read it when I was in Nebraska. And it really, truly changed it's because if you think about it, the number one stigma that convicted felons have, right, is that you're going to be nothing when you get out. You're not going to get a job. People aren't going to hire you. It really is.
Society's
It's
set up that way.
it
Society is
is.
totally set up that way.
It
And
really is.
that's another big thing I've come to realize is that even though there's like these systemic stigmas against ex-cons and stuff like that, the fact of the matter is you know, through whatever you want to call it, six degrees of separation, somebody you know or somebody I know or somebody knows has been in trouble before, and It's a loved one of somebody, and most of the time, if you can get people down, if you're in an interview setting, an application setting, with an apartment, anything like that, if you can get people down to the human level, most likely they are going to understand. And
Yes. Yes.
because
I mean,
what people aren't stupid, so they can, they can read you. Most people can read what's on the other side of the table, and you can tell if somebody is actively in the mindset of some just on some bullshit. You can tell. And
yeah.
so, I want that to be like a huge thing, because that is one of the major things that guys coming out is that I'm not going to be able to do anything. And so it takes you back to your comfort zone, which is going around the same people, the same places, the same things that brought you into that situation. Um, and so, yeah.
I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say who, but for me, I sold pot. Some of those people were very close to my family. Some of those people were people that I saw at holiday get-togethers, and I mean, um, and so for me, I could have very easily gone and found another connect and said, "Hey, I'm gonna go back to doing this." You look at it, and Colorado was legalized shortly after I got out. I'm like, wow, you know.
Yeah, and look at all the stuff going on with it now, like decriminalizing. I mean, what did Oregon just do? They just decriminalized meth and coke and all that stuff, and like you're like, wow. Um, okay, so I mean, it's really confusing because of the some of the stuff that they're got all these laws. I don't want to get into a big coronavirus debate or whatever, because it's literally bullshit to me. But they're making laws around masks and stuff and enforcing them, but meth is cool. It's cool. I mean, you're good. It's like
there's
somebody gets pulled over and they don't have their mask with them, but they got a 25 bag of fucking meth, and they're like, "No, you're good to go."
that's a problem. That's definitely a problem.
So I
I
mean, that's it's a little scary,
It
that that
is.
that
It is.
type of stuff is going on.
No, I agree. My thing is this is that you know, so when I got out, dude, I rode a bicycle. Okay, I mean, rode a bicycle or I walked, and it was only because my dad was kind enough to send me a bicycle. Um, but to
What
kind
was
of take
the
it,
what was the mindset at that time? So for me, it's like I did similar. I went to work release, and a buddy of mine gave me a chance at at the company up in Omaha that I started working for in 2012, and my direct supervisor was a meth addict slash recovering meth addict, off and on, off and on. He was a subcontractor of the company, and this was my boss. I'm trying to be sober, and this was my guy. Like, I almost had to babysit my boss to make sure that we were working. But what I'm getting at is, there were some days I had to ride the bus, and the mindset at that time is, um, since I was doing, I guess it can be summed up in 3 words: whatever it takes. And I had to tell myself that multiple times a day, because all I had to do is say whatever it takes, and then I put an image in my mind of looking outside, looking out of that fence, and remembering, because when you forget the pain of all that is when sometimes you can slip back into that comfort zone. And so go ahead. I cut you off, but like that was the mindset. So what was your mindset when you're riding this bike to work every day, and you're like, you partially, do you go through comparing yourself to other people, where I should be? This person's
oh
got
yeah,
this car, and so like,
yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, you got to look at it, and again, for me, selling pot was very profitable. So I had a house, I had cars, I did whatever I wanted to do, and I got out, and I'm like, oh man. Luckily my grandfather let me move in with him. Um, you know, if I wouldn't have done that, I'd have been in a homeless shelter. And he let me move in with him. And so I started a job selling radio advertisements for a company that had contracts with all these radio stations. We were calling businesses and basically trying to sell them like 30-second commercials that they're sponsoring their local basketball team, or they're sponsoring the local football team. And I was also working part-time at Pizza Hut, making pizzas, right? Like,
Were there times during that when you were just like, when, you know, you're like, why am I doing this? Like, what is the purpose of these jobs? You know, it's like,
oh yeah, there's times where I'm like, you know what, this is rough. This sucks. This is horrible. You know, but I kept telling myself, you have nobody else to blame but yourself. And that's the mindset that I developed over the 2 years, 9 months, and 8 days that I was incarcerated. And the reason I can tell you how many days and months is because I keep that in the back of my mind as a remembering time. I lost my grandmother. She passed away of cancer, or pneumonia from cancer, while I was incarcerated. Because I was out of state, I couldn't go back and see her. That's tough, I keep all those painful memories as a driver to what I don't ever want in my life ever again. I have been lucky to meet a woman that it's hard because even after I got out, I dated women that would date me, even though in my past, right? That was also a stigma. I mean, you can't go date a lawyer if you're a con. I mean, they're not going to give you the time of day, right? I mean, you can't go date anybody that has anything of substance if you're a con. I mean, that's the mindset. I can't get a job. Nobody's going to give me a chance. I mean, I'm an imposter if I go in here to the steak joint and try and hit on this chick. And I mean, it's all, you know, but it's coming to the self-awareness that, hey, you know what? I can do great things. You know, dude, from there, I had a buddy of mine, he was working, he got a job doing construction on an oil and gas job. He's like, hey, I know you're making crap for money. You want to come do this? Well, that opportunity, and this is a guy that I used to do business with back in the day, right? I mean, you want one of the jobs, and there's meth, there's coke, there's heroin. These guys are roughnecks. They're all doing all sorts of stuff. But I took this job paid me $1,800 a week. I mean, I worked 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. I broke my back, but I was able to buy a car. I mean, this is in the wintertime, in the summertime in Kansas, hot, cold, no air conditioning, no heater, just, it was rough. I'm beating my ass every day. Yeah. And from there, I got laid off because the job came to an end, and I had a little bit of money because I decided, hey, I'm going to save this back a little bit in case I get laid off. And prior to getting sentenced, because I was out for a year prior to when I got in trouble, when I got sentenced, I got a job as a debt collector, right?
Yeah. Over the phone?
Yeah. So
And over the phone?
Yeah, over the phone.
That's pretty impressive that you got that job, because those are pretty regulated for backgrounds too.
They are. But the thing that saved me is I was able to go in there and say, hey, I screwed up. Like, I screwed up. Luckily for me, the screw up wasn't a financial crime or a crime of moral turpitude.
Yeah, there's a big difference. Yeah.
So, there is. If I would have been in for theft or something like that, it'd been different.
It'd have been like, bye.
Yeah, exactly. But I was able to say, hey, I screwed up. I made a bad choice. But from there, I became a top producer. They gave me an opportunity. I got into management. They gave me an opportunity to, I went back to school during this time online, used student loans, and I got a degree in software engineering. And I'd already had a bachelor's degree, but I didn't have anything that I could use. It was just business. So I had a couple of legs, but they gave me an opportunity with this speech analytics, and I'm going to tell you, going to prison and living with other people for different crimes and different things and the different lifestyles and the different attitudes, and it really helps you start to understand behavior. at a level that most people don't understand. And when you're able to become self-aware, it even helps you even more because you look at yourself in comparison to others and the words that they say and the actions that they take. And so I kind of excelled at this, right? It was kind of a good fit. But from there, I got an opportunity to go work for the largest privately owned debt buyer in the country. They recruited me. And again, I had to overcome my background. Again, they're going to run a background check. And I had to explain to them, I said, hey, I messed up. But since I messed up, these are the things I've been doing. And I've been doing some mentoring with the Kansas Department of Corrections and, trying to give back, trying to help. And so they gave me a shot. I worked there on a contract for almost a year. And then I had a large debt collection agency recruit me. And I was their director of business intelligence, which it's an executive role. I reported to the executive board. I had Dell Computer try to recruit me due to my work in speech analytics. And all of this is not to brag. All of this is to say that no matter how low or how bad things have been in your life, you can change it. You can absolutely turn it around if you change your mindset and you make the decision to go forward instead of looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. So looking at the big picture, guys, if you're paying attention to what's being said here, it's he's talking about like you don't just come out of that hole and all of a sudden you're working for the biggest debt collection agency.
No.
I have a good friend of mine, Pitzer. He, last time he was getting in trouble or whatever, I was trying to explain to him, at this time I had, 8 years out and stuff like that. But how this is relative is that you're talking about steps along the way. You're building bricks, and it takes days on days on days on end of stacking these little pieces of experience into place to get to that point. There's no get out and that's what it is. Unless unless your family's uber rich and like they just place you in some position, like the shit don't happen like that. You have to make a conscious effort every day. But what I did for my friend is I was trying to make this dude that you remember, Matt. This dude,
he was my son.
He was your celly. And this dude could he could read a book and photographically recite paragraphs out of books. And
Dude,
so he's
smart.
Very smart, could just consume information and apply it in his head of how it was supposed to be used. But the one thing that he was missing that I tried to point out to him, and I'm going to draw a diagram of it in a second, is I said, Matt, what you have is basically this right here, this circle is your wealth of, can you see that?
Yep.
This circle is your knowledge. All of the books and shit that you've read. Most people on the street, this circle, can you see that other circle?
You can only see half of it.
All right, so this other circle is like people who have been on the street. This is like life experience, right? Life experience. So
can you move the camera a little bit?
Yeah, let me see here.
There you go.
So I said your bank of knowledge from reading books is huge, but your experience of life is this. That big. And so most people's experience in life is this, whereas their book knowledge, I don't want to say it's that small because a lot of people do read on the street and that have been out here forever or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is that when you have you have to have life experience. It doesn't just go from where you were years ago to today. And so what I said is I was like, Matt, all this knowledge doesn't mean shit without putting these little days. Stacking these days of experience on each other, that's where the circles start to come together, right? And so
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to bring that up is because what you were just talking about is like, it was a path that you had to take. It wasn't just like, it just didn't happen out of nowhere. And
Oh no. So I'll give you some of that path. Like you were talking about, you're building up these stones, and these little pieces of experience. And there's days that somebody comes in and kicks all those pieces over.
yeah,
And you got to figure out how to pick those back up and put them back together the way they were. And for me, it was, I had to prove. So before I got a job, I was on welfare for a month after I got out of prison. I mean, I got food stamps for a month after I got out of prison to fill the gap.
you got to live, yeah.
For a job, and I got a job, and as soon as I got a job, I quit using those, even though it was $8 an hour is what I was making. I mean, I was making $8 an hour. I was selling a couple of radio ads, but I mean, the way they had it, I mean, you were lucky if you made $10 an hour. Like you were just that was like top earning, right? That's why I got that part-time job at Pizza Hut. And really, had I come back out and I started hustling the way I was hustling before, and not gone through those experiences just to get to that, my buddy who had already cleaned up his life never would have called me for the construction job.
Yeah.
He'd already cleaned up his life. He wouldn't have said, "Hey, dude, I'm making this kind of money. I'm willing to put your name out there if you're willing to come work for it." So had I not gotten out and struggled and put in 150 applications to get my first $8 an hour job, I mean, these things weren't getting a shoe in. This is me applying for everything. I applied to Walmart, which they don't hire felons normally. I at least got an interview.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't even hire me. And so, it was not, it has been a struggle. And it's not only been a struggle because I can tell you there's probably 100,000 times in my mind that has gone back to, man, I could just go get a pound of weed and all this is going to go away. And do you want to put yourself back in that situation? And the answer I tell myself every single day, and it's an every single day kind of thing.
And as the days go on too, like I had a lot of temptation of stuff. There was like, I was doing some pretty foul shit, like creating checks with IDs and, doing stuff like that, going into stores, and like I was doing some pretty foul shit. And it's very tempting when you, like, it's almost, on that lower level frequency thinking, that's a skill set to some people. That's like something to fall back on, right? And so it was tempting in the beginning, not so much anymore. Like I've got almost 10 years sober. I drink non-alcoholic beer. I go out to bars and I'm around people that are like smoking weed and stuff. And it doesn't bother me because what I've chosen is that stuff is going to create problems for me. And so I just am not going to do it. Like, I don't care what how bad I'm feeling. Like what I've really done is gotten into a really good habit of not, like, I almost don't even like taking any, like, anything prescription, anything, because it's like, I feel like all it ever does is like the taking the recreational drugs and alcohol for me it was a masking of symptoms, and it wasn't taking care of what was actually going on. So
Yeah.
I also relate that, sometimes it's actually I shoot myself in the foot because, there could be like actual physical stuff, like when I'll tell you a story in a minute about this. The other day we did a team building thing about killed me. And like I pay so much attention to my mental state and my spirituality that I almost don't have the balance of the physical. I don't, like, my teeth, like my, stuff like that stuff doesn't register on my radar because I'm just like, like I act like I'm 20 years old. And like, I'm like, I'm all right. I don't need to go. I'm not going to the doctor. I'm not going to, like, I'm not doing none of that shit. But like, for instance, the other day, and I really wanted to bring this up because I was going to tell you this in conversation, but I'm sure you saw that video on change makers.
Yeah.
Dude, that was so we did our company Christmas party yesterday, and the owner did a 3-day event. The first day on Thursday, we did basically RRCA Fight Club Spartan Day, like team building day, where we did all these activities throughout the day. We broke up into groups, and we split the groups up, each activity. So like each person would get points, whoever
Yeah.
got first place and stuff like that. So first thing, 9 o'clock in the morning, we get to Loudermilk Park on the beach. Sun is shining, it's 70 degrees, but the ocean's 60. And he's like, we're gonna run this morning. And I'm in jeans. And I'm like, dude, like we're gonna run. Like for one, I don't run. I'm like skinny. I have to lift weights to maintain a good weight. You know, I don't do any cardio because any type of shit like that, and I'm starting to look like Skeletor. So like I can't be shaving stuff off like that. I'm trying to add and maintain 200 pounds. And
Right.
anyway, so I don't run at all. That was the point. And he's like, we're gonna run down to Naples Pier. Mind you, this is 2.5 miles to the pier.
Oh man.
We're gonna run down and back. And
These days that would kill me.
dude, you know what? I don't know what it was, but like I went into this hyper focused state, and I had been recently in the last 6 months, you know, maybe longer, been disconnected from the company because I've been going back and forth to Omaha a lot, and just kind of been doing my own job, staying to myself, not really involved in the group chats. And I was like, you know what? This may be a way for me to reconnect with the owner.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what happened, but I got in this hyper focused state, and I literally I made it to the halfway point without stopping at all. And I made it back. I stopped maybe 3 times for 10 seconds, but like something in me just kept saying, "Fucking go, just go."
Yeah.
And
Wow.
at that point, I was at the 2.5 mile mark, and like I wasn't even I don't know how I did it, but my breathing was fine. I thought I was gonna kill me. Anyway, so we get done with that. My team wins the 5 mile run. We finished first. After that, we did some Wim Hof breathing exercises. And I don't know if you know what that is, but it's Navy SEAL breathing, where they breathe in deep with their diaphragm and push the exhale out as hard as you can. Do that 30 times in a row. Like it almost makes you feel like you're lightheaded and gonna pass out because your body is producing so much oxygen in your blood, and you're just like, you know, it's
Oh
like you're
wow.
seeing stars and shit. But so we did those exercises 3 times in a row. And then our next contest as a group was to get in the ocean and hold our breath underwater. Whoever could go the longest. Um, I won that. Almost 3 minutes
That's awesome.
underwater after doing those breathing exercises.
Holy cow.
And so it's it's a mind state thing, you know? And that
No,
about
but
killed me. But I basically, my shins were hurting the next day. My feet were hurting. There was things on me hurting that I didn't even know were there. I was running on soft sand, and it was like, you know, so like I don't pay attention to that stuff. I pay a hyper attention to what I'm thinking and to how I'm feeling and spiritually. But when it comes, like that's something that I need to work on, because like I really need to, like I need to go to the doctor regularly. I need to, you know, get blood work done, just like get my stuff regulated, because I don't do that like I should.
No, well, and that's, you know, one of the things. So it's funny. It's funny you bring that up because I have a client of mine, and I have a saying that I want to share here in a minute that I tell myself every day, in the whole idea of mindset, not going back to the life before. Um, but I had a client of mine who's a very successful realtor. He owns numerous apartment complexes, and I handle his digital marketing and personal branding. And he sat down and he did an exercise with me, and it's about the balances in your life, and you know, and it goes through the steps of family and finances and spirituality and physical health.
Life coach stuff.
Yeah, and it's really about finding balance in all of those. And if you're always so focused on business, then you can't be focused on family. And I have to say that since I got out, I've been so hyper focused on success and proving to the world that, first of all, I'm not the guy that went in, and second of all, that no matter what, you can still conquer. You know, you can conquer your own life. But I met somebody not too long ago, about 5 months ago, And, things have moved relatively fast, but she absolutely makes me happy. And it's me taking the thought of, maybe I need to shift some of my priority to other parts of my life, because is it healthy if I'm so focused on business that I don't take into account my personal health? I don't take account my mental health. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Because it's easy to fall into that too much, right? Kind of an idea like this week I'm challenging myself to make 75 cold calls a day, every single day, 75. And it's, the way I look at it is,
no, it's at that point it's a numbers game. You have to, if I make 75 calls, there's going to be somebody that's interested to hear what I got to say.
Yes, bingo. And for me, I look at it, and luckily for me, I have that collection experience background. Because I'm going to tell you, debt collections is the hardest sales job in the world, because you are convincing somebody to pay a debt that they haven't paid, and basically said, screw it, I'm not
don't want to pay it.
Right. And so my thing is I guess where I'm going with that is, I started my digital marketing agency because I'm on a path to helping. And I see a need for small businesses that get scammed by the guy that's trying to make, a bunch of money on them and not give them any results. And so as where I'm going with that is that when you start to dig deep, you find that happiness comes in all sorts of forms.
Yeah.
And really, honestly, I think that's anybody that's in prison, anybody that's struggling with addiction, anybody that's struggling with those issues, it's finding that happiness. It's finding that place of, okay, I'm comfortable, or not comfortable, but I'm happy. And not necessarily finding happiness in dope, or finding happiness in money itself.
It's happiness. Happiness comes from within. It's not anything that's outside of you. It's not a thing or a person or it's being completely at peace with everything right now. That's a state of it's a state of happiness. And
so there's a story that I want to tell you that. So there's 4 guys that I was in prison with, or 3 other guys, 4 of us that were in prison together, that I really communicated with the most. You being one of them, Pitzer being another, and then another guy named Jared Carranza being another. And one of the ways that I also tell myself, hey, you don't ever want to put yourself in that situation again. Jared Carranza is now dead. He got a federal bid and killed himself in federal prison. And I don't know really how Pitzer's doing, but I can sit here and tell you that at least one of us is no longer here because he didn't make the choices to change. He was a good dude. Yeah. Great dude. Good heart, just all around pretty good person.
Most people are, and it's really it's all about a mindset, and the self-awareness is a very huge thing to have. And
so with that being said, I want to share this quote with you.
Yeah.
And it's a quote that I reference a lot and I look at a lot for myself, right? But it's The Tale of Two Wolves, and I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's an old Cherokee chief teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside me, he said to the boy. It's a terrible fight, and it is between 2 wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, self-doubt, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside of you and inside of every other person too. The grandson asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win, Grandpa?" The old chief simply replied, "The one you feed."
The one you feed. Whichever one you feed. So that's a great, I think we're going to, end it on that note, but that's a great, basically story about what we were talking about earlier about the conscious and the subconscious. No matter
Yeah.
what you feed, I mean, I literally, I was, I got to tell you, I was in the beginning when I first got out, I was so freaking rigid. Like I was rigid with everything I was doing. Like I was just like trying to be like this robot, and
Yeah.
I went from one extreme all the way to the other extreme without any gray area and everything. And looking back on it, I've loosened way up because uh, all I think I was doing was I was trying to, for one, I was trying to create new habits. And the only way that I knew how to do that was to not do what I was doing. And so that
Yeah.
meant going the complete opposite. Well, since then I've been able to kind of level out and figure out what my, what my limits are and everything. And but no matter what, it's what you're feeding into your brain that is going to eventually manifest itself. So if you're hanging around people, it's like what they talk about with the, look at the 5 closest people you hang out with. You're going to be those people. And so I constantly try to surround myself with people who are trying to outdo their old self, or somebody who's always like trying to grow, who's thinking outside the box, not hanging around people that are, a person doesn't have to be with a criminal mindset or something like that to be a miserable person. Like you can literally
Yeah.
be just a negative complaining ass person and not really committing any acts of offense against other people or anything like that. But I don't want to be around those people. Like those people get the stiff arm usually because like I don't look at life like that. I look at life as like every day is an opportunity. Every person I meet is an opportunity to engage, to create a new relationship. You never know. You're always one person away from like, your next big opportunity. And so,
Not only that, but the thing about it is you're one person away. You don't know the impact that you can make on somebody else's life by just a kind word.
yep.
The guy that's rolling down the road, that pulls
He
up to a stoplight.
just found out his girlfriend cheated on him, and like, and you give him the middle finger because he doesn't go quick enough. Like that
No,
dude is, his next action could be the end of his life. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
Or the end of yours. And
yeah.
so like I, I did, I try to look at stuff like that and just try to recognize that like other people's actions, they don't have anything to do with how I'm going to respond or have anything to do with me. So I'm just going to choose to do what I do. And
I believe that if you put your mindset to it, you can conquer anything in your life that you want to conquer.
anything.
Anything, but you have to show gratitude. You have to, it's a big thing on paying it forward, right? I'm So for instance, and real quick, I'll just leave you with this, but I mean, I left my job, a 6-figure job as an executive, to go off on a road that is going to help other people more than it helps myself. I made a lot
Yeah.
of money.
What impact are you making? It's huge. Guys, that's the end of the podcast today. This is our first Opening Doors podcast. If you know somebody, if you are somebody that needs to hear positive inspiration, needs to hear it from somebody else, needs some kind of third-party validation that this can be real for you too, please like, subscribe, and share this out to somebody. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your experience, please reach out to me. My email address is jreducation3@gmail.com. Shoot me a simple message and let me know, what just kind of a brief thing of what you want to share. But like, subscribe, and share this out. Until next time, thank you so much.